Inside Cook County Jail, gangs don't just survive, they run the place. From orchestrating attacks through hidden phones to controlling entire tiers like kingdoms, this jail isn't just a detention center. It's a micro-city of power, loyalty, and blood. Before we go deep into the unseen truths, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and stay till the end. Because what you're about to hear has been buried for decades. Until now. Chicago's Cook County Jail is more than just a holding facility. It's an ecosystem. Built in 1831 and now spanning over 96 acres, it stands as one of the largest single-site jails in the United States. On any given day, it holds between 5,000 to 7,000 inmates, the majority awaiting trial. But behind those concrete walls and razor-wire fences, the jail operates like a parallel society, one built not on law and order, but on gang hierarchy. By the mid-1980s, Chicago's gang problem was already infamous. The gangster disciples, vice lords, Black P. Stones, and Latin Kings had carved out entire sections of the city. But inside Cook County Jail, those street boundaries didn't disappear. They condensed. Each tier became a block. Each cell, a corner. Every inmate who walked in was instantly sorted, not by crime, but by affiliation. Guards, some veterans of decades inside, described it as a city within a city. Everything had a price. Food, protection, cigarettes, phone time, and above all, information. But how does such an organized underworld operate under 24-hour surveillance? To understand that, we need to go back to Division 9, the maximum security section known among inmates as the House of Pain. Built to hold the most dangerous offenders, it became ground zero for the evolution of gang control inside the jail. Here, gang leaders didn't just serve time, they ruled from behind bars. The key to their control was communication. Despite constant shakedowns, contraband cell phones became lifelines. From within their cells, leaders directed drug sales, ordered hits, and even managed recruitment across Chicago's south and west sides. Investigations later revealed that gang commanders inside Cook County were relaying coded orders to street members, sometimes using messages written in toothpaste under the sinks or hidden behind ventilation grates. In 2014, a major bust exposed that members of the gangster disciples had coordinated multiple assaults on rivals inside Division 9 using smuggled phones. Surveillance footage showed inmates moving in unison, a choreography of violence so precise that investigators concluded it had to be pre-planned. The discovery led to one of the largest internal crackdowns in Cook County history. But punishment wasn't simple, because every time officials locked down one section, another gang filled the vacuum. Division 10, meant for segregation, became another stage for dominance. Latin Kings in one tier, vice lords in another. When rival gangs ended up in adjacent units, tensions exploded. In 2017, a leaked internal memo from the sheriff's office acknowledged that traditional methods of separation are no longer effective, stating that gangs now communicate across divisions through corrupt staff, coded letters, and street connections. That admission confirmed what inmates had whispered for years. Cook County wasn't just housing gangs, it was sustaining them. Still, it's not just the gangs who hold power, it's the system that enables them. Many correctional officers, overwhelmed by understaffing and constant violence, have been caught in the gray zone between control and complicity. In 2019, a Chicago Tribune investigation revealed multiple officers under suspicion for smuggling contraband and tipping off gang members about upcoming searches. One former guard admitted that anonymously, "If you don't cooperate with them, you become their enemy. They know your name, your route, even where your kids go to school." The psychological pressure was immense. Some guards turned a blind eye just to survive the shift. Meanwhile, inmates who refused to affiliate often found themselves in a deadly middle ground. Without protection, they became targets, not just of rival gangs, but of extortion rings within their own tiers. Phone calls, food trays, commissary credit, every privilege inside was leveraged for control. Cook County Jail's leadership has tried for years to dismantle these invisible hierarchies. New surveillance systems, gang tracking databases, and intelligence units were introduced. But as one senior investigator put it, Every time we cut off one head, two more appear. The structure adapts faster than policy can respond. The gangs had learned the system and weaponized it. Some inmates, like Cornelius Brown, nicknamed C-Note, later testified in court that orders for attacks were relayed during attorney visits, coded within legal talk that couldn't be recorded due to confidentiality rules. Others used commissary receipts to pass messages, manipulating even routine jail bureaucracy into their network. By the late 2010s, gang control inside Cook County had evolved into something almost invisible, a psychological operation. Authority wasn't shouted through bars anymore. It was whispered in trust, in fear, and in the rhythm of routine. And just when officials thought they understood the power structure, a leaked video from inside Division 9 changed everything. The footage, later released through investigative reporters, showed a group of inmates staging a mock trial, a gang-led court session. Inmates sat in a circle, one man standing before them, accused of betrayal. The judge, an older inmate known for enforcing gang discipline, pronounced the verdict. Moments later, guards discovered the accused severely beaten in his cell. That event confirmed what insiders had long feared. Cook County's gangs had built their own system of justice. What began as survival and confinement had turned into governance. Inside these walls, hierarchy ruled more effectively than any warden's command. And as we'll uncover in the next chapter, some of those leaders inside Cook County Jail were never supposed to be there. They chose to be, to keep the empire alive from within. In most jails, the inmates follow rules, but inside Cook County Jail, the rules follow the inmates. By the mid-1990s, the jail wasn't just housing gang members. It was hosting meetings. Leaders from the Gangster Disciples, Vice Lords, and Black P. Stones used the facility as an operational hub. They called it the headquarters. And the man at the center of it all was Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover, co-founder of the Gangster Disciples, had been locked up since 1973 for murder. But from behind the bars of Illinois state prisons and at times during transfers through Cook County Jail, Hoover's reach stretched across the Midwest. Through coded messages, lawyer intermediaries, and trusted lieutenants, he ran an organization worth tens of millions of dollars, a network known to insiders as growth development. Hoover's men weren't just pushing drugs, they were pushing ideology. Inside Cook County Jail, the Gangster Disciples established a quasi-corporate structure: board members, treasurers, regional governors. Even within confinement, recruits learned about chain of command, accountability, and financial discipline, all masked under self-improvement rhetoric. The FBI later called it one of the most organized criminal enterprises to ever emerge from a jail. In 1995, federal agents launched Operation Headache, an undercover effort that would eventually expose the depth of this control. Using wiretaps, informants, and hidden recorders inside Cook County in V. Stigators traced how Hoover and his top commanders issued directives from behind bars, everything from setting street-level prices to mediating disputes between neighborhood factions. Every visitor, every phone call, every commissary slip was a potential message. When the feds cracked the code, they discovered that Cook County Jail wasn't just detaining criminals, it was producing strategy. In one transcript, Hoover's men discussed Policy Paper Number 1, a document that rebranded the Gangster Disciples as a civic movement, growth and development. But behind the polished words lay instructions for drug distribution, weapon procurement, and discipline enforcement across state lines. In 1997, Hoover was convicted on federal charges of continuing to run a criminal enterprise from prison. The trial painted a damning portrait. Coded notes delivered during legal visits. Guards bribed to pass sealed envelopes. Street soldiers using jailhouse intel to target rivals. He was sentenced to life without parole and transferred to ADX Florence, America's most secure supermax prison. But removing Hoover didn't dismantle the system. It fractured it. When the general fell, lieutenants rose. Inside Cook County Jail, smaller factions fought for dominance. The Black Disciples, Four Corner Hustlers, Maniac Latin Disciples, each saw the vacuum as an opportunity. The violence spiked. By 2002, internal reports documented over 1,000 assaults per year, many tied directly to gang disputes. In one case, an inmate was beaten to death inside Division 6 after refusing to check in, a gang term for acknowledging control of a particular tier. Investigators found the order for his beating had come not from the jail floor, but from an inmate in another division entirely. How was that possible? Through a system of runners. Runners were inmates trusted by gang leaders to move information between divisions. Sometimes they were trustees. Inmates granted movement privileges for cleaning or food service. Sometimes they were simply bribed. They used notes called kit, folded messages slipped inside laundry bags or meal trays. Each kite could cross multiple hands before reaching its destination, invisible to most guards. A former inmate later told WBEZ Chicago, "If the jail is a city, then the kites are our mail. Everyone has a postman." The control extended beyond communication. Gangs influenced who got which job inside the jail, from kitchen work to janitorial positions. In the kitchen, the access to food became currency. Those loyal to a faction received larger portions or extra trays. Those who weren't didn't eat. In the laundry, inmates could smuggle contraband stitched inside sheets. By 2010, Cook County jail officials acknowledged that gangs controlled large sections of daily life, despite aggressive crackdowns. The sheriff at the time, Tom Dart, called the situation a daily chess game. He told reporters, "Every move we make, they anticipate. They adapt faster than bureaucracy allows." Under Dart's leadership, the jail tried to separate known gang members based on intelligence databases, tattoos, and self-admissions. But the effort often backfired. Gangs began lying about affiliations to infiltrate rival tiers, spy, or recruit. The divisions became psychological battlefields. One correctional officer described walking into a unit where the walls themselves seemed alive. Graffiti codes, gang symbols, and cryptic slogans covering every inch. "It's not art," he said. "It's communication. You can read a wall in Cook County like a map." And yet, for all the chaos, there was structure. Invisible, disciplined, and brutally efficient. Inmates respected rank more than rules. A single word from a shot caller could halt a riot or start one. Federal investigators later compared the organization inside Cook County to paramilitary command. The influence reached even the streets. Police wiretaps on the south side picked up phone calls where gang members waited for orders from the county. The phrase referred to directives originating inside Cook County Jail, orders to retaliate, negotiate truces, or settle debts. The jail had become both punishment and headquarters. And while Chicago's streets bled, the real leadership sat behind bars, strategizing. But soon, technology changed the game. Smuggled smartphones replaced kites, encrypted apps replaced coded letters, and social media became the new battlefield. In 2017, deputies confiscated more than 250 contraband phones in a single year. Some of those devices had active social media accounts, inmates live streaming from inside cells, mocking the system. One video, briefly posted to Facebook before being deleted, showed two rival factions in a common area. The camera panned over handmade weapons, and a voice said, "This is Cook County, boy. We run this." That clip went viral, forcing the sheriff's office into emergency lockdowns, mass searches, and staff rotations. But even after dozens of arrests, the phones kept coming back. Every crackdown led to a new smuggling method: drones, food deliveries, corrupt insiders. Cook County Jail had become a symbol of a larger truth. You can lock up a man, but you can't confine an empire built on loyalty, fear, and profit. By the end of the decade, gang governance inside the jail was so ingrained that it influenced everything, from how new inmates were processed to which cell blocks stayed quiet at night. And behind every whisper, every rumor, and every fight was someone giving orders. Sometimes a man with no name, sometimes a legend reborn. Every empire survives on supply. Inside Cook County Jail, that supply didn't come from tunnels or secret drop-offs. It came from the inside. Contraband, the lifeblood of jail power, moved like oxygen too. invisible veins. Drugs, cell phones, tobacco, and even homemade weapons all flowed through a carefully maintained chain of cooperation, silence, and corruption. But behind every package that made it past inspection, there was someone on the payroll, someone in uniform. Cook County Jail employs thousands of correctional officers. Most do their jobs under extraordinary pressure, understaffed, overworked, and often targeted by the very inmates they guard. But a small number, just enough to matter, became part of the ecosystem. In 2013, federal investigators launched Operation Jailhouse, an undercover sting targeting corrupt guards suspected of smuggling phones and narcotics into the facility. Hidden cameras, wired informants, and bait packages were used to trace the contraband routes. Within 6 months, 17 officers were either suspended or indicted. Some had been sneaking in cigarettes. Others, oxycodone pills and burner phones wrapped in plastic and slipped inside meal containers. One officer, later convicted, admitted that his debt problems made him an easy target. "They started with a favor," he said, "just a pack of smokes, then came the phone, then the cash. Once you're in, you can't back out." The inmates called it the county exchange. A phone could go for $1,000 to $2,000 inside. A small bag of heroin? Triple street value. Payments were handled through outside associates, often relatives or girlfriends of inmates, sending money through Western Union or prepaid debit cards. But the system ran deeper than bribery. Some guards were manipulated through fear, not greed. In 2015, one correctional officer's car was vandalized outside his home after he refused to smuggle items into Division 9. Others reported receiving anonymous threats. Handwritten notes slipped under their windshield wipers. "Warning, you got family out there too." In this kind of environment, silence becomes survival. Officers learned quickly which inmates to avoid, which questions not to ask, and which favors to pretend not to notice. This code of silence wasn't just among guards, it was cultural. Even honest officers often refused to testify against their own colleagues, fearing retaliation from both sides. A 2017 internal audit found that less than 10% of staff-reported misconduct cases resulted in disciplinary action, many due to lack of cooperating witnesses. That silence bred confidence, and confidence bred empires. Inside the walls, contraband phones were more than luxury. They were command centers. With them, gang leaders could text orders, run extortion rackets, and even live-stream intimidation videos. One intercepted message read, "Tell them, this ain't county rules, this is my rules." It was traced to a phone used inside Division 10, linked to an inmate already serving 40 years for murder. Federal prosecutors later revealed that the same phone had been used to coordinate an armed robbery outside the jail, planned entirely through encrypted apps. The outside crew had been taking directions from an inmate still wearing a jumpsuit. Control didn't stop at smuggling. It extended to information. In Cook County, knowledge is power, and power decides who lives through the week. Some guards leaked details about cell searches or transfers in exchange for bribes. Others simply whispered updates during night shifts. A single warning, "They're coming at 6 a.m., could allow inmates to move contraband, destroy evidence, or hide weapons. In one of the most shocking incidents in 2018, surveillance footage caught 2 officers deliberately leaving cell doors unlocked during a scheduled movement period. Minutes later, a rival inmate was ambushed and nearly killed. When questioned, both officers claimed mechanical error. But the investigation found no malfunction. Both resigned before charges could be filed. Corruption became a ghost, always suspected, rarely proven. Officials tried to tighten control. Body scanners, surprise shakedowns, and phone jamming technology were introduced. But the jammers interfered with official radios, creating safety risks. Eventually, many were turned off. The result? The gangs adapted again. Inmates began using hidden signal codes with cleaning crews and delivery staff, tapping on doors, whistling patterns, or sliding folded notes beneath laundry carts. Even the jail's design worked against containment. Cook County's age and size, sprawling across multiple divisions built decades apart, made surveillance difficult. Some hallways had blind spots that cameras couldn't cover. Some storage rooms hadn't been inspected in years. It was in one of those forgotten rooms that investigators, in 2020, made a chilling discovery. A makeshift stash. Phones, chargers, syringes, sharpened metal strips, and handwritten ledgers tracking inmate debts and payments. The handwriting? Different hands, but one pattern of initials repeated through every page. GD. The gangster disciples still ruled. Decades after Larry Hoover's removal, his structure endured. Decentralized, invisible, effective. To outsiders, Cook County Jail looks like concrete, steel, and order. But inside, it's a fragile ecosystem of alliances. Guards who fear their shifts, inmates who fear betrayal, and a system that keeps recycling chaos. Some former officers describe the stress as unbearable. PTSD, burnout, and moral conflict are common. Many quit within months, saying the jail felt alive, as if it had a mind of its own, constantly testing, learning, adapting. But a few stayed. And among those few, some learned the dark art of negotiation, maintaining uneasy truces with inmate Les, aiders to keep the tears calm. Inmates knew the trade: peace for privilege. No riots, fewer searches. No searches, more control. A balance of convenience. What no one realized was that those small compromises, a favor here, a blind eye there, built the foundation of a shadow government. By 2021, Cook County Jail wasn't just battling overcrowding or violence, it was battling its own reputation. A place where gangs were organized enough to dictate peace or war. A place where officers whispered as much as inmates did. A place where silence was safer than truth. And then came the moment that shattered that silence, when a whistleblower from inside the sheriff's office leaked hundreds of internal messages, exposing just how deep the network had gone. In late 2021, a series of encrypted files began appearing in the inboxes of Chicago journalists, federal investigators, and civil rights attorneys. The sender called themselves Division Ghost. Inside those files were hundreds of internal text messages, emails, and disciplinary reports, all from within Cook County Sheriff's Office. The whistleblower's leaks exposed what insiders had whispered for years. The line between gang control and official oversight had all but vanished. The documents, verified by multiple sources, painted a chilling picture. Certain correctional officers were consistently assigned to specific divisions, the same divisions long dominated by gangs like the Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords. Over time, these officers had developed understandings with inmate leaders, informal agreements to maintain order in exchange for protection or silence. But the files went further. They included text logs showing coordination between inmates and officers on contraband transfers, visitation arrangements, and even unit movement schedules. One text message, later confirmed by internal investigators, read simply, "Tier quiet tonight. Drop coming through kitchen cart." Another, "They want the phones in 10 before lockdown. You good?" Both messages were sent on personal phones belonging to officers currently on duty. Within days, federal agents from the FBI's Chicago Field Office and the Department of Justice's Office of Inspector General had launched a joint inquiry. They named it Operation County Line, an ironic nod to the jail's location at Chicago's southwestern border. The leak exposed more than corruption. It revealed a pattern of concealment. Several internal incident reports had been edited, critical details removed before submission to the sheriff's database. Fights that left inmates hospitalized were logged as verbal altercations. Weapon discoveries were reclassified as found objects, and disciplinary warnings for staff mysteriously disappeared after administrative reviews. In one leaked email thread, a supervisor advised subordinates to keep documentation light during a series of shakedowns. The justification? Too much paperwork brings too many eyes. Transparency, it seemed, had become the enemy of stability. But the most explosive revelation came from audio recordings embedded in the leak, snippets of phone calls recorded by internal surveillance, never meant for public ears. One recording captured a conversation between an inmate leader and an unidentified voice, presumed to be an officer. "Officer, you gotta calm your boys down. We can't keep pulling dead bodies out of your block." Inmate, "Then stop moving my people without notice. You handle yours. I'll handle mine. That exchange, raw and unfiltered, summarized decades of unspoken truth. Inside Cook County Jail, peace was negotiated, not enforced. When journalists from the Chicago Sun-Times and WBEZ published the first excerpts from Division Ghost's leak, the city erupted. Public outrage led to press conferences, legislative hearings, and renewed calls for jail reform. Sheriff Tom Dart addressed the media, stating firmly that corrupt peon will not be tolerated, and announcing the suspension of several officers pending investigation. But the scandal didn't end with staff misconduct. Buried within the leak were documents labeled tier analysis reports, detailed spreadsheets tracking gang influence within each section of the jail. Each division was color-coded. Division 9, blue, gangster disciples. Division 10, yellow, vice lords. Division 11, red, Latin kings. The files revealed how official intelligence units had long documented these controls, yet the assignments of officers, cell placements, and movements often aligned perfectly with the gang charts. Investigators began to suspect institutional complicity, not just isolated corruption. A former high-ranking staff member, speaking under condition of anonymity, told WGN News, "We knew who ran what. Everyone did. But if you pulled all the strings at once, the place would implode. It's containment, not correction." That phrase, containment, not correction, became the unofficial motto critics used to describe Cook County's true condition. The federal investigation deepened. Agents subpoenaed phone records, surveillance archives, and staff schedules. They traced the financial patterns of several officers, cash deposits, wire transfers, gambling debts, and sudden purchases. By mid-2022, 9 officers were indicted for bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to distribute contraband. One of them, during testimony, described the jail in haunting words. "It's not who's in control, it's what's in control. You walk in every morning and the air already belongs to somebody." But the leaks also exposed something the public hadn't seen: the human toll. Hundreds of staff messages revealed despair, exhaustion, and fear. Officers begged for transfers out of gang-heavy tiers. Some described panic attacks, nightmares, and anxiety so severe they avoided sleep before shifts. Others wrote about guilt, of watching corruption spread, unable or unwilling to intervene. In one email, an officer wrote, "We're not guards anymore, we're pieces on their board." And amid that chaos, the inmates were evolving too. Gangs had adapted to new crackdowns by turning inward, replacing violence with economic control. Phones, food, drugs, even commissary were all managed through a system called the store. Every tier had one. An inmate known as the storeman acted as banker, supplier, and enforcer. If you couldn't pay your debts, you didn't go to medical, you didn't eat, you didn't sleep safe. Investigators found that storemen across divisions were connected, their ledgers referencing one another's debts. A microeconomy of extortion, built on trust and terror. The whistleblower's files confirmed something profound, that gangs weren't just surviving in Cook County Jail, they were governing it. And while the public focused on arrests and politics, inside the walls a silent war began, between the reformers who wanted change and the insiders who'd built careers in the shadows. By the time federal agents executed their final search warrants, Division Ghost had vanished. No one ever confirmed their identity. Some say it was a deputy with a conscience. Others whisper it was an inmate with access. But whoever it was, their leak ripped the veil off one of America's most secretive jails. Yet even with the truth exposed, the machine kept turning. Cook County Jail adjusted, replaced, reorganized, but never stopped. And as new reforms were announced, the old network simply changed form. Because in the county, power doesn't disappear. It just changes hands. In the heart of Chicago, Cook County Jail still stands, a city within a city. Thousands come and go, but the stories never leave. The gangs, the guards, the silence, all part of a cycle that outlives every reform, every promise, every administration. The hint: with those walls, power has no uniform. It shifts, adapts, survives. Because inside the county, loyalty can be currency, and silence can be law. But the truth always finds cracks in concrete. And for every secret buried in those tiers, someone on the outside is still listening, still watching, still asking the question, who really runs Cook County Jail? If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and share this video. Your voice helps uncover what others try to keep in the dark. Because justice doesn't live in silence. It lives in awareness.